Have you ever looked at a piece of writing you've done and thought, gosh, this is terrible. I'm never going to make it as a writer. Or maybe you got a rejection from an agent or an editor and thought, man, this is my 5th or my 10th or my 15th or whatever rejection it was. I must be an awful writer. I'm never going to be able to make my dreams come true. If so, welcome to the club. You're a writer who struggles with self-doubt. Hi, my name is Colleen M. Story, and this is Writing and Wellness. Self-doubt makes you believe that you're never going to get where you want to go, so why bother trying? I know because I did this for many years. I started writing as a novelist way back in the late 90s. I didn't get my first publishing contract until 2013. And looking back now, I can see the big reason that it took me so long is because I let self-doubt get in the way. I let it tell me that I wasn't good enough. I let it slow down how often I submitted my work to publishers, to journals, to agents, to editors, so that I wasn't giving myself the opportunity that I needed to have to be able to start gaining traction in my career. So I can tell you from experience, when self-doubt creeps up on you, you want to deal with it. So you may be wondering, how do I know if I'm experiencing self-doubt right now? Well, let me give you a few signs. The first one is the one I was just talking about. You're not taking action to push your career forward. You're not submitting your work. You're not blogging. You're not building your author platform. You're not trying to get yourself out there on podcasts or on social media. You're receding and staying back because you've let self-doubt convince you that your stuff is no good, so you shouldn't show it to anybody. Now, I'm not saying that you should automatically assume you're a writing genius already. Certainly, we all are constantly learning, and it always helps to get feedback and keep trying to improve your work. But while you're doing that, it's also important to submit, to get your work out there, to be publishing blogs, to be getting on other people's blogs as a guest blogger. You don't want to hide because in today's world of publishing, your platform means everything. So if you wait until you get, quote, good enough to be able to start getting your work out there, it's going to be too late. The second sign of self-doubt is you're not writing enough. Maybe you got halfway through your novel and started struggling, which we all do, by the way, halfway through the novel. That's always the hard spot. You start struggling and you stopped writing. Maybe you were going gung-ho, 1,000 words a day, and then you ran into trouble and you convinced yourself it was because you're just not good enough and you've kind of pulled back. Third sign of self-doubt is you've started to blame everybody else for the lack of progress you're experiencing. The editors don't know what they're talking about when they reject my work. It's everybody else's fault, so why should I bother? Now, it's true that the market is tough right now. It's true that a little luck never hurts. But if you start blaming everybody else for your lack of progress, what you're doing is giving your power away. You're saying it's useless, I can't do anything, so I might as well stop trying. So that's the 3 signs of self-doubt that you can watch for. The first being that you're not taking enough action to push your career forward. The second being that you're not really writing a lot lately, and maybe that's a change from what you were doing before. And the third is that you've started to blame everybody and everything else for your lack of publishing progress. So, if you start noticing these signs of self-doubt, then of course the next question is, what do you do? Perhaps the most important thing to realize at this point is that self-doubt, what it's telling you, is not the truth. It is simply a habit. It's a habitual way of thinking that you learned somewhere along the way in your life, most likely when you were a child. In other words, the things that little voice is telling you, you can't believe it. You need to picture that voice as, I like to tell people to picture it as a monster or a ghost sitting in the background, trying to get you or scare you or frighten you. Now, this is kind of tough for us because we're used to believing what we hear in our heads. It's our own thoughts, right? I mean, if I'm thinking, I got this 15th rejection, this story must not be any good, I might as well throw it away. I'm assuming that's the truth. It's my thoughts. I'm hearing it in my head. I don't question it. I'm telling you right now, start questioning it. Start saying, wait a minute, is this really the truth? Somewhere along the way, you learned to think this way, and so many of us do. That's why this is so common, especially among creative people. We learn somewhere along the way that if we're not succeeding as writers, it must be because we're not any good. There is this is caused by this thinking. That's just a bad habit. Instead of saying, you know what? I've got some great talent here and potential. I just need to get some help. Maybe I need to hire a book coach, or maybe there's a teacher that would help me out. Instead of thinking that way, we think, oh, well, these things aren't going well because they're just not good enough. I'm not good enough. My writing is not good enough. So, I should just feel bad inside myself. This is a habitual way of thinking. And the good news about that is you can break the habit. It's not like something unchangeable. It's not something about you that you can't fix. All we have to do is change a habit. This is like not brushing your teeth before you go to bed. So, of course, the next step is, how do we change this habit? I have 5 steps for you that you can take whenever self-doubt starts popping up in your life. The first one is simply to decide. You have to be aware of what's happening enough to say, wait a minute, I'm going to stop this. Enough is enough. Now, we writers in the back of our minds think, well, what if I really am not good enough? The problem is you will never answer that question for yourself unless you keep trying. If we feel compelled to write, it's usually because we have some sort of talent for it. But that's just the seed. We have to water it. We have to grow our potential. And we can't do that if we allow self-doubt to stop us and to slow us down. So the first thing you have to do is decide, I'm going to stop this. This is stopping right now. Because you're never going to feel that pure certainty that you want to feel. I'm sorry to say, I've been a writer for over 25 years now. You're never going to feel that. There's never going to be somebody on this earth that can bestow upon you the certainty that, yes, you are a good writer and you should be writing. You are the only person that can do that for yourself. And that may feel a little hollow, like, well, gosh, who am I to say that I can do this? You're the only person who can say you can do this. There's nobody else qualified to tell you that you can. And who else would you want to give that power to? Who else on this earth would you want to give the power over your future as a writer to? I hope there's no one. This is up to you. This is your life. This is your dream. So decide. You're going to put an end to self-doubt so that you can go after your career with all of your energy and motivation. The second step you want to take is to look for evidence that's going to boost your confidence. Now, when we're in the throes of self-doubt, we look for all the evidence that tells us we're no good. It's just how the brain works. We humans have a negative bias anyway. We're really good at seeking out bad news. So, we look at the one bad review out of the many great reviews that we might have gotten and think, okay, that's proof that I'm no good. We look at the rejections as proof that we're no good and ignore the acceptances. Focus more on the good reviews, on the good comments, on the acceptances, on those days when you just feel like the writing really went well. Start seeking those out and start ignoring the rest of that negative stuff. Now, the third step you want to take, and this one really comes into play if you're feeling kind of down and discouraged right at this moment, and boy, self-doubt is really loud in your ear. You want to identify the trigger, because most of the time there's some event. Maybe you got a rejection. Maybe somebody said something that made you feel bad. In other words, you can say, oh, okay, I was doing all right until X point, and then I started feeling bad. So it's not really that I'm a horrible writer and I'm not good enough. It's simply that I'm reacting to this trigger. Which brings me to step 4. Once you figure out what triggered the self-doubt, then you want to take notice of the habitual thinking. We're like rats in the maze. Something happens. I get that rejection, and here my brain goes down its habitual highway. Oh, you're no good. This story's no good. I told you it wasn't. Here goes your brain. And it's kind of fun to visualize it as that little rat in the maze. Because then you can step back and say, okay, my brain's doing its thing. This is my bad habit. It's time to stop it. So find the trigger. Realize that your brain's now responding to that trigger with its usual habitual response. And then step number 5. And this is simple, but it's magical. Step number 5 is take action toward your goal, whatever it is. Let's say you got your edits back from your book coach, your editor, or your teacher, or whatever. And you're reading through it, and it's just, making you feel bad. So here goes your brain into the self-doubt habit. The trigger was the edits on your paper or on your story, and then here goes your habitual thoughts. Step number 5 to get yourself out of this is to take action toward your goal. So maybe you wait overnight, let it sit. The next day, go back and tell yourself, okay, you know what? I'm just going to look at the first comment she made and see if I can fix that. Now, this amazing thing happens the second you do that, and we all have this resistance initially. Oh, I don't want to go back there because it feels bad to see this comment, and I don't know if I can fix it. But if you push past that resistance and take action and work on just that one section, you're going to find a way to fix it. You're going to find a way to improve it. And when that happens, you're going to feel better. Hey, I can fix this. I can make this story better. And what happens to self-doubt at that point? Poof, vanishes. There's a great quote that I love by Vincent van Gogh that goes, if there's a voice inside you telling you you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. There is power in action. And the difficulty is overcoming those negative feelings that we have inside to be able to take that action. That's where the courage comes in. You have to find it within yourself to move past those difficult feelings and take action anyway. If you need more help on overcoming self-doubt, I hope you'll check out my award-winning book, Overwhelmed Writer Rescue. There's a whole section in there on self-doubt with a lot more tips to help you get past it whenever it comes up. For now, I hope the tips in this video have been helpful and you can go back into your writing life with renewed confidence. And if self-doubt comes whispering in your ear again, tell him to get lost.